Thank you guys for tuning in. This is Mahogany Honey podcast, and today we have a special guest from Woke Wednesdays, Gerson Sanchez.
What up? What up? What up? What's going on?
As you know already, I'm so excited to have you on here. We met back at FIU during grad school back in 2014. Damn,
Spring 2014.
spring
7 years ago.
7 years ago, man.
Wow, man.
It's a while.
We,
It's a long
we made it
time.
out though. We made it.
We did. I mean, I struggle a little bit, not gonna lie, but you already know.
Hey, man. We all did, dude. You're not alone. We had each other, so that was a good thing.
We did. We had our little familia. We had a little familia going on. So yes, this is a longtime friend, and I'm happy to have him on here. So make sure you provide him with some extra love if you see his page and etc. I'm sending you guys over. Um, Today we're gonna be talking about marginalized man on a PhD journey. So
Yikes.
yikes.
It's
Why?
crazy. It's a journey, dude. It's a journey. That's for sure.
So you ready to get into your path and your goals
I'm
into the
ready.
higher education realm? We're
Let's
gonna
do this.
look
Let's
into
jump in.
your motives, intellect, emotional intelligence, how you alchemize education in your personal experiences and creative ways. And throughout the conversation, we hope to gain more personal insight into finding balance with it all, finding support, challenges, handling expectations, and advice. So hit them, Hurston. Let them
Yo,
know.
your English is on fire. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's some good English.
Gracias,
Um,
gracias.
yeah. All right, so where do we start? Where do we start?
Give us a little bit of your background and who you are and what you
Yeah.
do.
So my name is Gerson Sanchez. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be on here with you. I love seeing beautiful people doing beautiful things. So I am excited to be here. Longtime friend. My family, they came to the United States in the 80s from Nicaragua due to the civil war that was going on in
Okay.
Nicaragua. It was actually a civil war that was in part funded by the United States. And so there was a big controversy around that. Actually, part of the war and the way it was funded, uh, part of those funds were also intertwined with dispersing drugs in California to low-income Black and Brown communities. It was a huge scandal in the United States. The FBI ended up releasing all this documentation. So yeah, needless to say, my parents came during the 80s during that time, and yeah, so I was born here in Arlington, Virginia. Grew up as this brown Latin kid. I'm sure it was a similar journey as other people. That we spoke Spanish in my household. I learned English in school, and that was one hell of a journey. I was in ESOL till almost sixth grade. So long time, long time. ESOL is English for speakers of other languages acronym. So yeah, so little by little, I was very fortunate. I was very lucky, and somehow got into graduate school. Finishing my PhD. I graduate this May. It's crazy to believe I'm gonna be a whole ass doctor. That's wild. I can cuss. I can cuss. I
Yes.
cuss. Yeah,
Go
cool, cool.
ahead.
A whole ass doctor. But yeah, I also do Woke Wednesdays. Woke Wednesdays is a social justice kind of movement. That's what I would kind of label it at this point. It's many things. It's a show. We do content. We provide social critique on just the world and what's going on. But at a root level, it is about education. So that's what Woke Wednesdays is.
Awesome. And I'm excited. I've seen you grow from your master's going into your journey into the PhD and just like okay, I'm
That's
excited to get
wild.
into it. Yeah. So, how do you consider your relationship right now with higher education? Like, what has been your relationship with higher ed?
You know what's wild? I think it's always been one. It's afforded me many opportunities, but in some ways, I do think that it's been one where it's almost like a hazing culture. Like
Mm,
when you apply to school, you have to fill out an application,
yep.
and on this stupid application, you have to fill out like a letter of intent, a personal statement. And of course, it's all about how much trauma can I list in 1,200 words? Like how bad can I make myself sound? So they can have pity on
My
me and let
poor
me in.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, my poor story. Exactly.
To get a scholarship too, man.
Get a scholarship, all that bullshit. So yeah, on the one hand, I'm thankful for the opportunities that it's granted me, but I also understand that that comes with consequences. And part of it is having to just share your fucking trauma, so that you can be at least accepted on paper. Um, and so it's just some crazy shit. Uh, so yeah, I'm sure a lot of folks can relate to that.
It
I'm
feels
sure you
very
can.
intrusive at times, I'm sure.
That's a good word.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, that's a
And
good word. Yeah.
and impersonal, because it's almost like
Mm,
you're providing this information to people who don't know you. However, it's like I need to
mm.
provide you with this information in order for you to grant me an opportunity, and it feels like a violation in part. So yeah, I understand where you say like it's
That's real. I like
impersonal.
how you worded that. A violet. Yep, I completely agree with that. That's
The
exactly what
FIU,
it is.
the FIU degree is paying off.
Man, go ahead, girl. I see you. I see you. But yes, I think that's been it. But I think it's also, like I said, it did give me opportunities, so I can't downplay that. I mean, it allowed us to meet. I've met some amazing people. But who gets to be part of the us? Like, you know, our little crew was everybody was of color, black and brown, and we all just rocked with each other. You feel
Dead
me?
ass, it was.
And part of it is because part of the way these institutions work is that there's not many of us on campus. So when you see a face that looks like ours, it immediately becomes a familiar face. Uh, and yeah, most of us, what, three of us were Latino, and like we all spoke Spanish, so that was dope too. Mars Caribbean, like there was always this vibe there. To the point where Mario's my roommate right now. Like, and it's again because of who we're able to meet in those spaces. Um,
Yeah.
so it's I guess we could say it's a love hate relationship with higher education.
Yeah, I definitely value the relationships that were built. And the fact that we get to see each other grow up, even if we're not always in constant contact, it's almost like the support and love is still there.
Yeah, even when we're mad, we're frustrated.
Yes. We're
The
very
love is
honest
still
with
there.
each other. We're very honest with each other. Even if we don't see each other for a while, you know.
I think it speaks to the foundation of our friendship, though. Like, I think that's because I
Yes.
don't know if I would have. If somebody makes me mad, I'm bounced by like. But I think we kind of kept on talking through our little discussion, and here we are a week later, chatting it up again. So it's dope.
Yes,
So I'm
yes,
thankful for
yes.
that.
So me and her, Herson and I should say, Herson and I are very transparent. We have had a relationship where we're like constantly joking around, and it's like a little sis, big brother, or like a dad sis type of like always vibe when we're around, and like sometimes we have to pull each other and be like, Herson, I'm grown now.
It's wild because jokes can go left real quick. Um, but I think what one of the beautiful things is that we always come back together to vibe out. So
And I think that's mostly any like community, sorority, fraternities, groups, like even if like your friends from high school, etc. Like so the
yeah, no,
relationship
facts,
aspect of
facts.
it. So tell us what made you decide to go for a PhD? Because we want to know. Like,
You
because
know
some
what's
of us just
wild?
stop at a master's and we're like, we're done. I'm tired. I
What do you mean
cried
just?
before I
That's
got
a
my
big
degree.
deal. You can't say just. That was a big deal. A
It
master's is a
is,
big
yeah,
deal.
absolutely.
Um, I don't. It's wild. I didn't know what graduate school was till a couple years ago. I'm first generation, like many of us, and I don't even know how I really made it out of undergrad because I had to work a lot. I was working like three jobs. My parents had split up, and I was the oldest, so just trying to help out around the house. I don't even know how I made it out of undergrad. I moved to Miami the year after I graduated from undergrad because I was just tired of North Carolina, small town. So I started to party it up. I was fucking partying every fucking day in Miami.
Same, guilty.
And
We're guilty. We were doing it together.
yeah, I saw my life though like start kind of like spiraling out of control. Like I almost had a DUI one time. Like I don't know if I never even tell people that shit because it's just embarrassing. But I think it's important to share.
Yeah.
Like my life was just crazy. Like, and I was like, nah, I need to apply to school. Like I need to get back to school because if I don't, like I don't know where the fuck I'm gonna end up. And I applied to the master's program. I really had no idea what I was doing. And I applied to higher education administration. I thought that meant that it was going to prepare you to be a professor. That's what I thought it meant. I
Mm.
had no idea what it was. I went to FIU and the education building, and I knocked on a professor's door. Her name is Joy Blanchard. She's evil and conniving, because when I knocked on her door, she answered, and like I'm extremely first generation, so I guess I was asking dumb questions, what appeared to be dumb to her,
Mm.
and I felt so like mistreated after that experience. Like she made me feel dumb, and I was like, man, like I'm not dumb. I just don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like I'm first generation. I don't know who else to talk to about this.
Same facts.
Uh,
Yeah.
Somehow I got accepted, and then as even in the first couple of months, I still didn't really know what the degree was. Finally, I started learning. I'm like, oh, okay, this is like administration type stuff in college. Like, okay, like I get it. It's cool, whatever. But I learned very quickly I did not want to do that. So I actually ended up doing a graduate certificate in addition to my master's, in African diaspora studies,
S-
and I
s-
thought that shit was cool.
So
Yeah.
pause because that's interesting because I did the same thing as you, but I guess we never talked about it. Because remember that when
Mm,
we have met, I was on the mental health and school guidance counselor path.
hmm I do
Um,
remember. Yeah,
and I ended up, and that's how I met you guys because I met you in the research class,
exactly. In the research class.
yeah, the education and research class. And I remember like halfway through, I was almost done. I was like 75% almost like done. And I remember telling
Mm.
Jasmine, you know, Jasmine, of course. I'm like, Jasmine, I really don't think this is meant for me. I don't think this is the path for me. I don't really think I like
mm.
counseling people or sitting with like a client and just like doing that. And I just, and I'm scared because I just realized this. And then I changed my major to urban ed.
I like Urban Ed. It's cool.
Yeah, Dr. Lovett. I love
I
Dr.
love it. Yeah, yeah,
Lovett.
absolutely.
I found I
And
found my
yeah,
mentor.
so Urban Ed was dope. With so you met Dr. Wen too?
Yeah, and I met Dr. B. I can't Dr.
I don't know.
Barantovic. I
Oh yeah, Barantovich.
yes.
Yeah, yeah,
A lot of
yeah, yeah.
support in that program.
Martha.
Yeah, Martha. I love
Yeah,
Martha.
yeah, yeah. So I took a class with Dr. Wen too. She was amazing. Dr. Lovett. She's actually on my dissertation committee. She's dope. Just people who are heavily involved in the community, which is always great. So yes, that's what I was doing. I learned quickly that I wanted to teach. I knew I wanted to teach at the college level. So I found out about something called a PhD, and I thought the only like I'm sharing these stories because I want first generation people to understand that they're not dumb. Um, I thought the only doctor you could get was a medical doctor, like to become a medical
Same.
doctor. I'm like
Same.
I'm like people
I
get
sound
doctorates in
ignorant.
like math.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know people get doctorates and other stuff. Like I literally had no idea. So kind of find out, I guess you can get a doctorate in other stuff. Um, so I actually applied to the adult education program, and I don't know why I applied to that program. I think that I had a cool mentor in there. She was helping me publish, so I published a couple pieces in some academic journals. But I didn't know what the degree itself was. But I applied anyways. I just wanted to get a doctorate at that point. I found out I got in the program, but the program was too easy. Like it sounds weird, but the program just too easy, uh, and I did not like it. So I ended up going. I'll never forget. One morning I was walking in the education building and I knocked on this professor's door. This young white dude, young professor. He had just came to FIU, and I'm like, hey, my name is Gerson. Just want to introduce myself. I saw that you're new. He's like, yeah, yeah. He's like, what are you doing? And, I told him my research, whatever.
Mm.
He's like, oh, you need to meet this person. He told me, Puerto Rican professor in the higher education program.
Mm.
And I'm like, like I don't really fuck with him like that. because one time I sent him an email and he didn't respond the way I
He
wanted
didn't
him to respond.
respond.
And I was like, yo, I grew up in a place where if you're Latino, you have another Latino's back, hands down, period.
Facts.
Like, so when I moved to Miami, I learned really quick that being Latino doesn't mean
Doesn't mean
shit.
shit.
Like,
Doesn't mean shit.
so I'm like, man, I ain't trying to fuck with this Puerto Rican professor. Like, fuck this dude. Like, he's tripping, all this shit. I kid you not, the next day I end up bumping into the Puerto Rican professor in the parking lot at school. And I was like, hey, I'm like, this is ironic. This professor just told me I should link up with you. He's like, oh, yeah, he was actually very nice. He was very, very nice. He said, oh, come by to my office. He sent me an email. I sent him an email. The next day I was in his office. And we ended up chilling for like 4 hours.
Oh
Gives
wow.
me all these books. And I'll never forget what he told me
That's
that day.
awesome.
He said, Herson, he said, you're very smart, but you're also highly uninformed. I was like, oh shit. Uh, it was rough to hear that. He's like, you're very smart, but you're so uninformed. He's like, you're not well read. He's like, you need to read. So he gave me like 20 books that day. Since then, he's probably given me almost 100 books.
Oh wow.
Like, and I've read probably most of them. And it changed my life. He changed my life for the better, academically. But it kind of reminds me of what we were talking about, how we do these things for each other because we're familiar faces, I guess even in the midst of all this oppression and injustice, it is beautiful to be able to find those familiar faces. So
And to reach out
mm,
and to like, connect at the end of the day. So that's
for
always
sure, for
dope.
sure.
So Mike, I have a side question. Are you familiar with Eduardo Bonilla?
It's
The guy.
Albania Silva, head of sociology at Duke
Yes.
University. Yeah,
Yes.
Afro Puerto Rican, colorblind.
He
Racism is this thing.
yes. He wrote Racism Without Racists. He's the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I probably have been so propelled to continue social justice conversations. And
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
I emailed him actually.
I did too.
Uh, he answered. Yeah,
He didn't answer me.
you know what he told me in that email was that he actually applied to come to FIU a long time ago,
Yes.
and they didn't take him. I don't know why. I don't know what happened, but I'm like, wow, like he's brilliant. He's incredibly smart. Uh, he's hard to read. He like his writing is very tough. But he's dope. He's definitely dope. I dig it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I would love to meet him. My undergrad school here, UMass, University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, had him come here and speak, and I was not here. I was actually in Miami, and I was
Mm,
so sad because like my professor like told me, she's
he's
like,
very smart.
Alexa, you love this book, and I know you loved my class. Like he's coming to speak, and are you around? And I was like, no.
He's amazing. I read like all his. I was really into him for a while. I read all the editions of that book. I think there's like 4 or 5, and I read
Hmm.
like I was just eating that stuff up. He's dope. Then I transitioned to some other scholars, but he's definitely cool. He's definitely cool.
Yeah. So I know that you wanted to get into this, and I can't wait to hear because I know you want to talk about it. What are some of the
Oh,
misunderstandings or myths about pursuing a PhD that you
oh
get on, or
man,
the annoying questions that you get?
dude. So what's your research on? When do you graduate? How long is the PhD program? I'm like, yo, just leave me the fuck alone. Like that's what I really want to answer, because people have the best intentions, and people are being nice, especially I've like met so many other people of color, and I number one, I never bring up that I'm getting a PhD. I never tell anyone that. Like, I don't like to share that information, especially in our communities. I think sometimes it can be misread as, el que se cree todo, oh, you think you're hot shit because you get a doctorate or you got a master's now, or you went to college, and it's like, bro, it's not even like I'm not like, so I just don't tell anybody. But I think people end up asking these questions so often that it just gets exhausting. and the PhD journey is just very cumbersome. So it's just an exhausting question to constantly keep answering. So yeah, so those are questions that you never ask a PhD student. Like, what's your research on? When do you graduate? Oftentimes PhD students don't even know what their research, study is going to be until they finish their coursework. So sometimes I don't even know what the fuck they're doing, research on.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, so those are kind of like the annoying questions. Some of the myths, student loans is a bitch. Student loans are horrible. Uh, I wish someone would have really talked to me about that before starting to PhD. Even though I got a scholarship, even though I have an assistantship, even though most of my tuition is paid for, I needed those loans to live, because the assistantship pays me
Mm.
$21,789 a year. That's
You can't
horrible.
survive on that
How
in
do you live in
Florida.
Miami?
You can't. Yeah, that.
So yeah, those are some things that I don't really think they tell us. The PhD in our society is looked at as this big accomplishment, but rarely do they tell you all the bullshit that you have to do to even get it.
And the
So
sacrifices that I'm sure you
sacrifice.
probably had to make.
Same thing with the masters, like all these, higher education
Yeah.
degrees. And so,
Yeah, but I feel like my masters drained me. So for you to keep
hmm
going, I'm like, where did you find the inch of energy to like continue?
hmm
What propelled you, my friend, to and
I
I
don't know. Do you remember that girl I
honor,
was dating?
huh?
You remember that girl I was dating? That Colombian girl I was dating? Do you remember?
Which one? Which one, Herson?
She had glasses.
Maybe.
So we were dating, and while I was in my master's, when I graduated, she actually moved to Boston. So I
Oh,
was,
I think you did tell, yeah, while Mario was here, you came to see
yeah,
her
I
and you
was,
came
I
to
was,
see her in Mario. I remember. Okay, go on.
yeah, I was going to Boston every 3 weeks to see her, and I had just started my PhD program. Um, we broke up because I found out she cheated on me. So you talk about what propelled me. I think that definitely helped propel me,
Man.
because at that point, I was just like so heartbroken that I needed something to kind of
Yeah.
distract me.
Broken hearts
Um,
do it every time.
I had just started the PhD program, and it was rough, but I think in part that I should probably thank her for breaking my heart, because that allowed me to get really focused. And after that, dude, I don't even I don't even know how many books I've read at this point. Like I really got serious about my schoolwork. So that was actually a good thing. So it's crazy how such horrible moments can sometimes propel you to do some good shit. So, and
Yeah.
Woke Wednesdays too. Woke Wednesdays also helped me
Oh.
get through this.
Oh, I can't wait to get
Yeah.
into that one. We're gonna
Yeah.
get into that one. But I want to share with you something, and maybe you
Oh,
can help
please.
me. Maybe you can help me, and I'm being completely vulnerable here in sharing this because I'm very, how can I say, um sometimes we wear a mask, like we're strong and
Mm.
that like we're very knowledgeable and we like take pride in the things that we know and like the things that we worked hard for and like who we are and who we build our identity around. And at times, one of the things that I have found in regards to dating or just being in relationships is mansplaining.
Mm.
Especially when someone has a higher degree than you. I definitely
Mm.
want to speak on that and what would be your take in regards to mansplaining.
Mm. All right. So the
Break
last
it
time
down.
we chatted a week ago, right? You're like, Hurston, you're being a little machista right now,
I did.
and it,
I own
I
it.
I thought about it for a lot. I thought about it for like a couple of days afterwards. Like I was still like processing that. Um, and I was like, okay, I think I think that we live in a society where we're constantly bombarded with messages of how to be racist, how to be homophobic, how to be transphobic, how to be sexist, how to be ableist, how to be all these things. Like it's everywhere in our society, everywhere. Like movies, shows, Instagram, you name it. Like we're constantly being bombarded with all these messages. And as creatures of this society, we're not impervious to these things. Like it's gonna affect us in some capacity. So if somebody is racist or says something racist or sexist or homophobic, I'm like, okay, like I get it. Like we're all in this society. Sometimes we think these things and we don't say it out loud, but we think it. Right. So to me, that's okay. But I'm like, how people react to when they get called out on that is important. I think to me that's probably the more important thing. So when you call me machista, like my first reaction was like, huh? Because in my mind, that was not my intention, like at all. But then I was like, I can see how she could see it that way. I could see how I can come across that way. I could see how I can be understood that way. And I'm like, that's a fair call out. I didn't think it was, but if you feel that way, who am I to tell you how to feel? Um, so I should respect how you feel. Um, and I think the important part too is to reflect on that shit. So I reflected on it a lot, and I was like, man, in my mind, I still don't think I was, but I also understand that that's how you felt, and I should respect that. So, I apologized. I think I apologized that night, like as we were talking and stuff.
You
Um,
did. You did apologize, and it was more so because and it's not just you, it's just in general when it comes w- with men, and when I see like also other broadcast media, women in broadcasting or just in media, when they're doing, like, let's say, I don't want to say any specific radio stations, but the females that are on there, the men are usually, usually more men, and there's usually like one female, right? And so like they always talk over her. It's always like,
Especially in sports.
and
Have you seen
and
that?
yeah, and so in sports. And so for me, one of the things that I wanted to definitely come across, and it's not just for you, it's just for anyone who comes into the platform, especially like men, and me being a female, it's just like, hey, please just be mindful of my voice, like,
Mm.
you know.
You know, as men, we're literally socialized to speak over people. We are taught that this is we're taught that this is confidence. We are from the moment we're children, we're told to speak up, especially as men of color in particular. Speak up because you have to represent yourself. Like, when you're in school, you have to speak up for yourself. If you don't, people are gonna take advantage of you. So like we're constantly conditioned to think like this, which is why I, I think sometimes it is meant with it is there's like a bad intention behind it, mansplaining. I think sometimes, probably maybe most of the time, it's not even, I don't think even think men are processing it like that. I think they've just been so conditioned and so socialized, and this is not to absolve us of our responsibility or to excuse our behavior. But I think we're so socialized, and it's interesting the role that women play in socializing boys. We know that over 80% of teachers are women. 80%, 86% of teachers are actually white women. Um, and children tend to be with women most of the time. So if they're being raised by a mom, if they're going to school. So it is interesting who's also teaching young boys to also be confident in this way. This is part of what makes this a systemic problem.
I agree with you.
That there are multiple moving parts and that end up kind of creating this system. Um, Again, I'm not excusing our behavior. We should be called out on it and we should be held accountable. I completely agree with that. But what I'm saying is that we are very much conditioned to speak over people. This is how guys talk to each other most times. Especially you see it a lot with straight men. Um, when we're talking about sports, we're all just, it's about who can be the loudest, who can take up the most space. And then when women come into that space, because women have also not been, for the most part, conditioned to be like that, when they try to get in,
Depends
it's
where you
about,
grew up.
that's what I said, for the most part. It's about who can get in, or how you can get in the conversation. So mansplaining is terrible. I think what creates the culture of mansplaining in the first place is the more dangerous thing. Mansplaining is the effect of how we're conditioned to be. Um, Mansplaining comes after, but we are taught to do that stuff. That is not natural. We are taught to be mansplainers from birth, from the time we're born. Um, Again, I'm not excusing our behavior, uh, but I think we have to obviously re, readjust our society, the way we're raised, and I think it's also important to examine the role that women play in socializing us.
Look at that. I let you explain mansplaining on here.
I knew you were
It's
gonna say
always
that.
like a play on words.
I knew you were gonna say that.
A play on words. It's
I mean, who better to explain it, right? Than
That's why I gave you the question.
I actually do think women explain it better than men, though, because y'all experience it in a different way.
We
So look at me telling you how you experience it.
I let you do it to yourself. I was like, go ahead.
But it's also different. It's also, I think, an important part of this is that this is your podcast and you're interviewing me. So that's another component of it. Is it always? Sometimes I'm sure it is mansplaining, but sometimes it's like, oh, I'm a guest, and especially as someone who does podcasts too or interviews,
Yeah.
like I spend most of my time asking the questions. So it's actually kind of nice when I don't have to ask the questions and I just kind of get to talk. So that's another component to all this. It's not always mansplaining. There's aspects of that for sure, but it can be more than one thing.
Well, I love the fact that you are able to acknowledge the fact that I do give space on here, that I provided the space here for you to come on and like do this, because that is the whole intention, to be playful but also have a discussion while we're like doing it
Facts.
in a civil way where I can understand you and empathize, and like same here, you can see from my point of view, so it feels nice. This is a part of the podcasting that I enjoy.
You mentioned Dr. Lovett earlier,
Yeah.
and Dr. Wynn. They used to do this really cool activity with us as their students, and it would be like this listening activity, and they would always stress listening, listening, listening. And I'm like, man, out of all the male professors I've ever had, they've never talked about listening. But it was with these women professors, who stress listening. Again, I'm not saying that listening is a natural, inherent thing to women, but I think that women are conditioned more to listen than men are. Um, Again, this is part of what makes these issues so complicated because they are so systemic. They're so embedded in our everyday life, the way everything works. Like, in fact, we bully little boys who don't speak up. It's like, oh, you're not confident. You're being a little bitch. And that's how little kids talk to each other like that, like on the playground.
I heard them. I
Uh,
heard some of them.
so like, so what are we teaching them? Well, to be loud, to take up space. And then they do. And then years later, we come to see how that's actually maybe not such a good thing.
Listen, so thank you for that. I'm like, thank you for that. I want to hear, does your current journey, do you feel like it validates who you are right now? And do you consider that it as a part of your identity now?
Uh, for sure, because it's been such a big part of I spent all my 20s in school,
Mm.
um, or in graduate school. I started graduate school at 20. I finished college, I think at 21, 22. I started graduate school like at 24, 25. And I'm 32 now and I'm about to graduate. So like it's been such a huge part of my life for sure. Um, uh, but it's weird how we navigate that because like I don't when I'm out of school or out of the classroom, I try not to even talk about that stuff because most people I know aren't really like they might have a high school diploma or something, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like I'm not gonna say talk about French philosophy. Like, well, I'm just trying to get a burger and a beer. Like, so it is a huge part of my identity. But I think a lot of us, you said we wear masks. I think that's maybe one of the masks that we kind of wear. Like knowing when and how to take the mask off is also important.
Yeah, I like to ask this question because I've had ample time to, I haven't been back in school since 2017 when I graduated. And life has changed drastically since you step outside
Mm,
the higher ed, you know.
that's real. Yeah.
Once you step outside, it's very awakening is the
Mm,
word. Awakening.
yeah.
Um it's one of the reasons why that actually led me. I'm not sure if you knew this, but I think we did talk about it. The reason why I relocated, um, because I was working while I was in school, and I never really got to see if that's what I wanted to continue doing. The field that
Mm,
I was working in the social work field, but I was going to school for urban ed, and I was hoping that once I was, done, even though like my undergrad taught me already that like that's not once you graduate that doesn't mean that you automatically get the job that you want with the degree that you just got. That's not how it usually like
that's
goes.
real.
Yeah, it's very real and people need to hear that
That's one
because
of the myths.
I don't think people can stress that enough, and it needs to be said over and over again for everyone.
Yeah.
Um, and so once I stepped out and I was working this job, and eventually, like, I was like, I don't want to work here anymore. Like, I got my degree, I want to get out of here. Like, a lot of that, you could see a lot of that when I would go to work every day. And that
Mm,
was my attitude. That was literally my attitude. And I was very frustrated, to be honest with you, and with everyone, that I wasn't able to transition into like the job positions that like I went to school for. But
mm,
everyone's like, but be content and happy that you already have a job, that you have this. And I'm like, yeah, but also understand that if I don't do anything to propel myself into the degree that I got, like what's gonna happen if I and I'm the type of person like, I grew up in a like environment, and I'm a person who grew up in marginalized community, and it's like you have to the only way your life changes if is you do something about it. You have to take act, like we have to do something. And I didn't know what it was like to actually sit still with
mm.
myself and reflect on what Alexa wanted and where did I want to go. um
That's
and
real.
i and I took a hard hit when I actually had to realize that education didn't validate me. But that's
Mm.
my story.
What do you mean by education? Like college? Or you mean like what do you mean?
Yeah, college, like my degree, it it wasn't it wasn't the end all. That's what I mean.
Mm.
I value it.
Mm-hmm.
You get it? But
Yeah, I feel you.
at the same time, like it wasn't the end all. That like I was letting it validate me. Like I was saying, because I had this, I'm
That's what you're saying.
worthy.
I don't
You
know if
get it?
I don't
It was very
know
humbling.
what does validate you.
What does validate me? That's a good question. What validates me now? I want to say probably God.
You know? Like, see, I don't even know how to answer
Like,
that.
and a lot of us still are in that realm where we probably
But
don't
I'm okay with that though. Like, I don't know if I
not have.
believe in God. Like, but like that's like for me, like in my personal kind of journey. Like, I don't know if I do, but I I I don't know what I don't know if I need validation. I know I like having good people around me.
Yeah,
I think the older I get, that's something that I find really important.
yeah.
Like probably more than anything else, having good people around me that care about me and care about my well-being. I think that feeling is one that is validating. I don't know if it validates me, but I think it's validating, like in the way it works in my life.
Okay. No, I
Um,
guess that's a good response too, because it can change. Like mine
good
obviously drastically changed.
people come and go, right?
No, and that's that too. And the thing is that like you put so much how can I say, like, you could put so much attention and like care to something to then later realize that like this does not, this is not the end all.
Yeah.
Like,
It's crazy you're saying this. I think this is a dope question. Be- so I'm about to graduate, right? But lately I've been thinking about opening a gym
okay.
with some of my friends. Like, we're like, hey, like, maybe we should open a gym or something. Has nothing to do with everything I've been working so hard for. Nothing. Absolutely, like nothing to do. But I was like, I'm so, you got me thinking now. I'm like, man, like, life is a crazy thing. So I don't ever want to get married. Like, that's not like my thing. I don't want to have kids. Like, I don't want to do any of that stuff.
Are you sure that's
Um,
what you want to be broadcasting right now?
yeah, I'm fine with that. But I was thinking, the reason I'm saying this is because I thought about the other day. I was like, let's say I'm saying this as a 32-year-old, right? Let's say I turn 50, and I'm like, you know what? I'm ready to get married. And let's say I live to be 80, and I'm married to the same person. That means I would have been married to the same person for 30 years of my life. If I get married at 50 and die at 80,
Yeah.
30 years of my life.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I can't even imagine, like, what? So I'm saying this to say that I we're so young. Like, life is just beginning. I think sometimes we feel old, like, for whatever reasons.
Yeah.
But like, we're so young. You could do a job right now, like have a career for like the next 20 years, and that would be 20 years of your life, and then you just want to switch it up and do something else.
Legit.
Like, we're very fortunate to have these degrees and to be in the positions that we're in. But there's just so much more out there. Like, so much more to do. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah.
And I say it so other people, don't have like an identity crisis later.
Yeah, I love this is a great question. Kudos to you. It's hard coming up with questions. As someone who likes to interview people, it's hard to come up with good questions. So I like that question.
I'm glad you liked it because I try to be intentional with it because I like to inform people on some of the realities that you may come across
Yeah,
once you work so hard um, towards something. And
facts.
especially in regards to education, because we place, especially in the state, so much value on it. Yeah, my
Absolutely.
student loans can talk for that. So much value on it.
It's wild. It's
My
wild.
student loans can talk to you right now.
Man, let's not go there right now.
Or not.
Let's not. We're in a good vibe kind of place right now.
Yeah.
All loans. Yeah.
So yeah, I do feel like a lot of going to go into like this identity crisis because they're like, oh my goodness, like now what? And they don't give themselves permission to, and they guilt trip themselves because they want to do something else now. And it's like, please be, and then they have to go through the whole process of like their family like being like, oh my god, you got a degree in this and now you want to do this type of ordeal.
Oh Lord. Yep, man. Talk about that. Jesus.
Yeah, trust me, I'm dealing with
Yeah,
it right now.
especially like in our communities, it's like most of our families and friends, they didn't go, for one reason or another, systemic racism and all that stuff. They didn't have the opportunity to go to college, and they assume that college is for a particular purpose. Um, and then when you don't align with that, it's like, oh, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, dude, leave me alone. Like,
Like, let me live.
just
Just let me
leave me
live.
alone.
So tell us, because I know you have so much to give. How do you pour into others? How do you think you pour into others? And how do you restore or recharge to keep going?
Man, I think my whole life is about others. Yeah, I made a video the other day, that I don't think you can do anything by yourself. I think it's impossible to accomplish anything. I said that I don't even think you can eat by yourself. I don't think you can get dressed by yourself. And what I meant by that is that someone had to sew the clothes you have on. And after your clothes was sewn, it was shipped to a place, and then it was shipped to you, and you had to go buy it. And when you went to go buy it, someone had to build your car, or someone had to build that bus, and someone had to drive that bus. Like, you literally cannot exist without other people. like everything we have is exists because of somebody else. Somebody made it. Like somebody, I'm not a light technician, but I have a light bulb that works because somebody created it. Like, so, so I think I like to think about life like that because it's a constant reminder that I can't do anything by myself. I need my community, and I think my community needs me. And I don't mean that like in an arrogant way. I mean that like we all need each other. Um, so I mean, I think when Donald Trump was inaugurated uh, in 2017, I think for a lot of people, including myself, was like an awakening. I think you used that word earlier. But at the same time, I had just started my PhD program, and I realized that I was learning so much at such a fast rate. You talk about Eduardo Bonilla Silva, like that's who I was reading in 2017. I was reading all his work, um, and I was like, man, I really want to share this with people. Like I don't know why I just wanted to share it. I thought it was selfish of me to keep it to myself. Um, and I think that's how I started Woke Wednesdays. Well, I know that's how I started Woke Wednesdays. Um, so how do I pour into others? I think is Woke Wednesdays has been, I guess, my kind of love letter to my community. That it's
Mm.
like I'm here to serve and and however I can. Uh, I've had one time this little girl, she's in high school. She DMs Woke Wednesdays. She was working at this Mexican like little store, like where they sell like little trinkets and stuff. And she told me that she DMs Woke Wednesdays. She writes that ICE had just called, and they were looking for her aunt, and ICE was gonna stop by to take her aunt to custody. Uh, and she was like, I don't know what to do, freaking out. And I was like, all right, cool. I was able to put her in contact with activists in her area
Oh wow.
that do work, you know, with immigration and stuff. Um, and that was like early on when I had just started Woke Wednesdays, and I still remember that story. I guess I remember that. And that was like one of those things that's like, all right, like I got to keep going, um,
Oh.
because real people can be helped. Um, so I think Woke Wednesdays has been that for me. It's been my way of pouring back into my community, and it's also been how they pour back into me. It's great to hear these messages of like, hey, keep going, like, thank you for everything that you do, all that type of stuff. And I think as far as how I kind of, because I've been doing this for 4 years, and it's exhausting. I mean, you're doing a podcast and you're addressing real issues. That's just exhausting.
It is exhausting.
Um,
Exhausting.
like look what time we're linking up to talk like about the stuff that we think is important. Um, but so I think for me, stuff that I do is uh, lately running has been amazing. Like I've really gotten into running. I just ran the half marathon on Saturday. I did 13 miles. Um, so that's been awesome. Um, so I think it sounds cliche, but working out, I cannot stress enough how important that is in my life and how important I think it is for others. So I think that's one way in which I do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree with you. Working out is definitely something I need to do. It's not even like an option. Like I have to.
yeah, you have to make it a priority.
I it's not even for my body at this point. It's like for my mental health.
Oh, for sure,
Yeah.
and it helps, dude. It helps
Yeah. I mean, there's so many other things obviously that can help you like in regards to just staying
for
well
sure.
and like whatnot, but that's definitely one of the key things. And you're in a great location for it.
Oh yeah, I
Because
live where you vacation.
this this is like that's part of the culture. Like working out is
Mhm.
definitely like part of the culture.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. Looking
Yeah.
fit,
So
looking, not even being fit, just looking fit is there's a whole
yeah,
thing in Miami. Yeah, yeah, it's wild.
since we're already on the topic, would you place intellect over emotional intelligence, or can you hold space for both? What do you think?
Intellect over emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
What do you mean by this question?
Just logic. All your
It's,
mind versus like, your heart and how you feel about things.
so I just finished. Well, I'm pretty much finished with my dissertation, and I dedicated like 4 chapters to emotions. Like I wrote about emotions for 4 chapters.
Oh, tell us.
Um, and I wrote about the way emotions kind of shape our behaviors and attitudes. Emotion is a very almost volatile. It can be a volatile thing. It can propel you. It can motivate you. It can move you to do certain things.
Yeah.
Um, when you're angry, that anger. I see out here passing notes. That anger.
She
Was
passed.
that can push you to do certain things. Happiness can move you to do certain things. Um, so I think on the one hand, you have that. I don't think they're necessarily distinct um, things. I don't think intellect is like versus emotions. I don't think about it like that. I think that they can complement each other. I think sometimes they can go hand in hand. I think sometimes they can, you know, not go hand in hand. Um, so I think intellect can be a lot of things. One of my favorite scholars, his name is Richard Hofstadter, an American intellectual. He wrote this great book called Anti-Intellectualism in American Life, in which he creates a distinction between intelligence and intellect. And for him, intellect is a critical capacity, the ability to kind of question things for yourself. Um, so a lot of people that we meet are intelligent. They can go to med school. They can add 1 plus 1 and it equals 2. That's a smart person, sure. But the intellectual person will ask, what does one mean in the first place? It's questioning the very essence of what we're, talking about. So I think I love intellect. One of my goals, personal goals, is to be an intellectual one day. Um, and so that's that. I think emotion is a very powerful thing. I think oftentimes um, it's looked at as negative, but I think emotion is actually uh, a very powerful and productive force. Because think about all the things that emotions lead us to do. Um, yeah, so I think I don't really see them as like distinct things. I think they're related in many ways.
So,
I don't,
how
I don't
would
know
you
if that
say
answers your question.
it does? But to help me more, how would you say it looks like in your life? And
In
how do
my
you make room
life,
for it in your life? How do you make room for emotional intelligence in your life?
man, emotions, man, I'm Latino. Like I'm an emotional person. Like if I think happiness is I know happiness is an emotion, and I embrace happiness all the time if I can. Anger is an emotion. I think anger is one of the best emotions for the activist because when you're angry, it allows us to do things. When we saw this vicious murder of George Floyd, where this horrific cop put his knee to this man's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, that made the entire world angry. Angry. And if you didn't get angry about that, then that already tells me something about you. Which, and we know a lot of people did not get angry. In fact, we saw that people were celebrating this. And anger was was the emotion that propelled all of us to move. To Donald Trump is another one. He made a lot of us angry when he first got into office, and even throughout his presidency. And he pushed a lot of us to get involved politically, which is one of the reasons why I started Woke Wednesdays. So I think I try to harness anger where I can, and I try to allow it to move me when I can. Uh, but I also try to do that with happiness. So yeah.
Yeah. I also I like to ask this question because I feel like um how can I say this? Throughout the years, there's been a lot of emphasis on logic, and I and even for me as a woman, like I feel like I have prioritized logic over like emotional intelligence, especially because for us is very they I feel like it has in the past has been very censoring when they tell us, you know, you're being emotional right now, or you're overreacting, and so forth. Words like that like um are very toxic. Actually, I've learned that that's actually very toxic. It's not helpful. People actually believe that that's actually being helpful and kind of highlighting or bringing awareness, and little do they know that's actually very censoring. Um, yeah, there's a lot that goes into that because for us to be able to make decisions, part of us being able to make decisions, we need to also acknowledge our feelings. We need to
Feelings are
acknowledge,
real.
yeah,
Feelings are real, and I think men are very emotional. I don't know if we look at it like that, but men are very emotional. Men express happiness. They definitely express their anger. And I also don't see anger as a bad thing. When we, you know, the trouble of the angry black woman, she's probably angry because something horrible just happened. We should all be angry. Like, so emotions are powerful. Like, and I think it's important to realize that and understand the role that they play in our society.
yeah, and anger comes
Um,
from censorship most of the time.
yeah, and yeah, it can, yeah, for sure. A lot of people have written about anger, and one of my favorite scholars, her name is Sarah Ahmed. Um, Beautiful writer. She is awesome. She has a whole book just on, and where she just analyzes a bunch of emotions: anger, rage, happiness, being sad, and all in relation to race and racism and gender. Definitely recommend her and her all her work. She has a cool blog called Feminist Killjoy. Um, she's dope. She's super dope, and she talks a lot about what we're kind of talking about right now. So
Yeah, yep. I like to highlight it, especially for like when we're dealing with like education. I feel like it gets pushed to the side sometimes, and like there just needs to be a little bit more like emphasis on like upholding both. I think David Goldman, if I'm not uh saying his name wrong, I'm reading his wife's book right now. So his wife is also a writer, and she wrote Emotional Alchemy, and pretty much it's like you everything that you've taken, everything that you learned, all your experiences, and actually like creating something out of it, kind of like your Woke
mm-hmm.
Wednesdays. Yep.
Cool, cool, very cool,
Yeah.
very cool.
So into that, what project would you say or achievement are that you're probably like the most proud of? I think I know the answer, but I want you to say it.
Honestly, I don't. I, uh, I just don't. I don't
At
think of
this
myself in
point,
that way.
just right now,
It's
doesn't.
weird. Like I don't know if I think of myself in that way. Um, like I just said, I think we're all. I think can be accomplished by yourself. I think everything is done because of other people. If I had to name one accomplishment, uh, I think my accomplishment is allowing myself to become uncomfortable. I consider that an accomplishment.
Okay.
It's taking me a lot of work to kind of to allow myself to be like, all right, you know what, Harrison, this makes you uncomfortable. Why? Reflect on it and be like, okay, learn from it. So like apologizing to people. That's something that's made me uncomfortable in the past. But I like being able to now like be like, all right, you know what? I fucked up. That was my fault. Let me think about this. Let me take some time and let me apologize. Like that makes me uncomfortable. But it's something I've worked at. Like uh and I think Woke Wednesdays makes me uncomfortable. Like learning new instruments, that makes me uncomfortable. You know, learning to be a good salsa dancer, that makes me uncomfortable. Like
That's
so
right.
that in be
Salsa dancer ladies.
like yeah, that in betweenness of things that makes me uncomfortable, I consider that an accomplishment because I think that's a good thing that I've been able that I continue to work on. So it's not the stuff that I do that I consider accomplishments. It's the stuff that comes right before that space of uncomfortable. That's what I consider an
Mm,
accomplishment.
got it. That's a really good answer. That was a good response.
Amen.
It actually made me think of like my vulnerability. That's like probably my kryptonite.
Mm.
Speaking about my vulnerabilities. However, I've learned that there's actually strength in that.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I mean,
I
and I think it's dope. We get to, like, hearing you say that type of stuff makes me think of how I am vulnerable. It encourages me to be so. So
find more
that's dope.
heart, make more space. I didn't know it was a thing. It's a thing. Um, what do I'm interested because I know that you teach. So can you speak on like what do boundaries look like for you these days?
Boundaries.
Yeah.
Um. Hmm. I don't think that I don't have like definitive boundaries. I think people are always changing. We're always changing. You know. I try to listen to my emotions. I try to see what my heart is telling me, honestly. And if I'm like, you know what, this is a cool thing, I should do this. All right, cool. Then I do it. And if I don't think it's a good thing, if then I don't. Like, I'll be honest with you. I'm not afraid to tell people, hey, you know what? I know we made plans a week ago, but I'm not gonna do this. I can't go. I'm tired. Uh, and that took me a while to kind of become more comfortable saying no. But these days, for the most part, I'm like, yo, I'm tired. I'm not going. I'm good. Like, but we made plans. I feel you. I feel you. Um, as long as it's not like anything like super important or something. But for the most part, if we made plans to like go grab beers or something, I'm like, hey, man, I'm sorry, I can't go. Sorry, I'm tired. I need to rest. And I think at my age and because of everything that I do and I'm involved with, rest is extremely important. The one thing I told myself when I started my dissertation or when I started my PhD work was, I am never going to sacrifice sleep for work. So I made sure to always get at least 7 hours of sleep. Uh, and I'm happy I did that. Obviously, I'm in a very privileged position. Not everyone gets to say or do stuff like that. I'm a single person with no children, no family. Like I don't know if you remember this, being in the FIU library, seeing mothers with their children. Like I remember they would bring like blankets for their children. They'd be sleeping in the library as their mom is doing work in her work uniform, studying. I'm like, oh my God, she's a beast. Like she is a beast. She's like a super mom. Like that's amazing.
Mhm.
So that's what I mean by when I say privilege. I'm not saying nothing wrong with having children. But I'm just saying I don't have. That's not a responsibility I have to deal with. You know,
Yeah,
I can.
it's not something that you need to worry about. However, I mean, I don't want to take away from you. I think it's very like sincere and very like that you are thinking about others, but I want you to focus on you right now
Oh
and
yeah,
tell
yeah,
me
yeah. So yeah, I'm telling you. So yeah,
what
so yeah.
it
When
looks.
I guess that's what I'm trying to say. If I don't want to do something, I don't do it. Like, and that's the way I focus on myself. I'm like, I've tried to become more comfortable with saying no to people. If I don't feel like doing it, I just don't do it.
So how do you balance? We want to gain some insight in regards to just like how are you able to balance
Mm,
like teaching, also probably going to classes yourself and having a personal life, maybe a romantic life as well, or just like everything and wrapped up and still like also creating boundaries with your students, things like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I haven't taught for the past year. I'm on a fellowship right now where I've just been focusing on research, so that's been pretty great. Having people that are understanding helps me keep some type of balance. So like right now, I've been working closely with the sponsor for Woke Wednesdays, and he's mad cool. We work together every day, and I'll be like, hey man, I can't come in early today. I, I'm gonna go every Thursday, like at 8 a.m. I go to the barbershop. That is me, my thing. Every single Thursday, 8 a.m. I'm at the barbershop. Every single day, Monday through Friday, at 4:15, I'm at the gym. Like, and usually 3 or 4 days out of the week, like at 6 a.m., I go running. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to go running at 6:30 in the morning. Like in January, I ran 79.5 miles. Like, I'm very strict about my schedule.
Okay.
So that is one way that I hold my boundaries. Like I am very, very strict about my schedule, and I don't break that shit for anybody.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Sometimes I'll go to the gym at 3:30 or something, and then after that, I'll go do this obstacle course race training that I like doing, like Spartan race, like all that stuff, like the training for it. I won't get home till like 9:30. So I will have been gone for like 6 hours just
Awesome.
training. But and I've had girls be like, "Oh, I thought we were gonna hang out." I'm like, "Look, I already told you, like I'm working out." I'm like, and that's if you can't get down with that, then like we just don't need to hang out.
Yeah, man.
Uh, so like, how do I do my boundaries? I prioritize myself over other people. Like, it might sound selfish, but I call it self care. Um,
That's what
so
I call it as well. So,
yeah.
and then, so what has been the most challenging for you?
Well, right now I'm about to graduate, and I don't really know what's going on next in my life. I think that's pretty challenging. Uh, you're in school for so long, so many years, that you said that after you left school in 2017, you had this awakening, like, and I'm afraid that's gonna happen for me.
I'll
Um,
be here
and
to
that's
guide.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'll be
But
here.
like, what do you do, with a, like, you're a fucking doctor now? Like, what do you do? Like, okay, like I don't know. Like, what? This is like what I've been working towards like my whole life. So I think that's what I find challenging: the unknown, the not knowing what's next.
And not knowing what's next. What I will say is you already responded to your own question, I feel, when
Mm.
we were talking about just trying not to fixate on
Hmm.
stuff and give yourself permission to change your mind.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, that may not be the answer to you for what you may
I like that though. I like
be,
that.
but I think that's one of the things I would tell myself.
No, I like that. I like that. And I guess I do tell myself that. But you know, I'm just chilling. I'm sure things will work out. Like, just keep on doing what I'm doing.
You wouldn't consider doing Woke Wednesdays like full time, like
That's what I'm doing right now. Like,
that's what
because for the most part, that's what I'm doing. So when I work with I see my Woke Wednesday, like he's the one who put up the money for me to do studio time with Woke Wednesdays and all that stuff. Um, and so that's really what I'm doing every single day. Like, I just interviewed. Woke Wednesdays has been evolving into a lot of things, and I just interviewed the owner of. You remember Wood Tavern, the bar in Wynwood?
yes, I love Wood. I miss Wood
Yeah.
Sundays. Oh
So it's yeah, Wood. He owns Wood. He owns the other bar. Like, he owns like 7, 8 bars in Miami, and I just interviewed him through Woke Wednesdays. It was
that's
dope, and
awesome.
but it's like I'm starting to do that type of stuff. I'm reaching out to cool people in Miami, and I'm like, man, like, I wonder what this is gonna lead to. Meeting all these cool people,
Yeah,
and so like I like that. I like that about my life. Like that it's just kind of random, but I get to use all the tools that I have at my disposal. So like right now, I'm editing the footage that we did with him, and I'm like, man, this needs like some cool background music. All right, cool. I'm gonna play the music myself. So
that's
like
right.
I'm
Because you play
like
the guitar.
yeah, guitar and piano. So like I'm producing all that stuff by myself. So it's like you never know like what little skills that you have are how you're gonna end up using that. So it's pretty cool because you know I'm creating my own music.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I got excited because
Oh,
I
you're
know that
good.
you play the piano
Oh yeah, you're good. You're good. You're good. You're good.
and
You're
you
good.
play the guitar, and I'm like, people need to know that.
Yeah, it's been a blessing. So
Uh, and so if you were not on this current journey you're on right now, yeah, I think you already answered this question. What else do you think you would be doing or pursuing? I think you mentioned the gym, but would they be like something else that?
um it sounds weird, or I don't know, but I'd probably be working in construction or something. Like, and the reason I say that is because I think going to school allowed me to do so much. And I used to go with my dad and paint. I've been with my cousins to go do construction, roofing, all that shit, and that is some hard work. But that's what we know, like in our communities. That's like the natural next step, to do hard manual labor. Um, so that's what we do, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's honorable work. But the only reason I say that's probably what I would be doing is because that's what everybody else that I know back home did. Like, if it wasn't that, it may have been maybe a gang. Like, but I was never really made for gang life. Like, I wasn't like I was never really. I did not. I just couldn't get that. I just couldn't do it. But like I was like too
Professor.
funny. Like, I'm too funny to be an MS-13. Like, I'm too funny to be Lion King. I just couldn't do it. Um, so I'd probably just be like in like construction. That's probably what I'd be doing. Um, and I'm sure my life would have been just fine. Uh, but I think my desire to help people, combined with the education that I've been very lucky to have, has blossomed into this cool thing. So I'm very fortunate.
Awesome. And what would be like, okay, so what do men who may be first generation, right? Or
Hmm.
who come from marginalized communities need today in order to keep going forward? Like,
Who are in
yeah,
school
to
right
where
now?
you're at right now. Yeah. What do you think?
I think they need to have an amazing community around them.
Okay.
I think that's important. I think we need people who support us. I cannot stress enough how important it is to have other strong men of color by my side. To have a person who I call a brother, with Mario. He is literally, I think, the only other dude uh, who fucking gets it. Like, um, and I'm very fortunate to have him as my roommate, um, my fraternity brother, all those things. But he's literally the only one I can talk to, like, about what's it like to be a man of color, getting a PhD, being first generation, being low income, being all these things. He's literally the only person I can talk to about that. And that is so important to have somebody that you can talk to about those things. And I think that yeah, and so that's that. So having someone like that's like on your level, that's great. I think having a mentor for sure is awesome.
I was
Um,
gonna say that.
for sure. When you can find a mentor wherever you can, honestly. Like, I have a bunch of mentors. Like a bunch of mentors. Sometimes, and none of them are very formal. Like, I'll hit them up like every couple months, or they'll hit me up every. I mean, it's exactly what I need at that moment.
Hmm.
That's good. Like, uh, and yeah, and I think we need our outlets, places where we can kind of be. One of my favorite authors, his name is Eddie Glaude. He's a African American studies professor at Princeton. He just came out with this book called Begin Again, uh, and he released it last year.
Hmm.
And he has this concept. It's called the elsewhere, and the elsewhere refers to either a metaphorical or an actual physical place that you can use to kind of get away
Hmm.
from all the ills of the world. It could be you, in your room watching Netflix. It could be you traveling to, I don't know, Colombia, whatever. The elsewhere is this place where you can just get away.
Hmm.
Um, and I think having an elsewhere is extremely important. And I think Woke Wednesdays is a type of elsewhere. I think, going dancing is a type of elsewhere. So I think that if I could tell something to other young men of color, first generation, it's know what your elsewhere is, find it, know how to get there, and enjoy the time that you're there. Because part of the purpose of this elsewhere is also to kind of help you get ready for what's coming again. Um, because shit is always going to come your way. There's no way around that. While you're in that elsewhere, try to enjoy it as much as you can.
Mm, I like that. I like that. This is my elsewhere too, so I feel you.
Right? Yeah.
And I like it here. Um, so thank you, Harrison. I really appreciate it. Um, I hope that people can take away, some tools and knowledge from this. Um, what are some of the steps or advice that you would provide at this point? So to the listeners out there.
Uh, well, thank you as well for inviting me into this this space that I know you hold in very high esteem, and you cherish this place. So I know what that's like. So thank you for having me. Um, some steps I would say is just don't be so hard on yourself. I'll say that.
Okay.
Yeah, like take it easy on yourself. Like, and it's hard to do. It's very hard to do, but take it easy sometimes because that's important. Like, you know, the journey of a doctoral student is not easy. This shit is tough. Uh, Dave Chappelle, in his special on about George Floyd, uh, he said anyone who makes it out of this shit is a goddamn superhero. Um, he was talking about black men surviving in this racist world.
Mm.
That's what he was talking about. But I think we could also use his words to talk about the PhD journey. Anyone who makes it out of this shit is a goddamn superhero. So, so I think as a superhero, you need to know what your weaknesses are. Um, so I, so some steps for is knowing, all right, what ticks you off, what throws you off your focus. When is a good time for you to study? I know for me, it's getting up early, and I know I have my rituals where I go, I make my coffee. I like studying with the lights off in the morning. I know that about myself. I know I like studying with the hoodie on. I know I like studying with the hat on. Like these are things these small little parts of the rituals that I know about myself. So I would say, you know, get to know yourself in that capacity. Um, and I think it's so helpful in the long run. Um, and learn that early on in your doctoral journey, and it'll help you.
Yeah. And
So
what would you advise anyone who would be in a relationship while doing their doctorates?
don't get cheated on. That's some good advice right there. Um,
Trying to balance it all. What would you say to them?
cheat first. Like
I
before you
love
get cheated on, like cheat first.
Don't listen, you guys.
Like
Harrison.
make sure to cheat first. Um, yeah, so just cheat first. No, you know what? A better person to ask this to would be Mario. Mario's been in a happy relationship. I don't know how that guy does it. Because after my breakup, I was like, you know what? This is amazing. This is actually a good thing that we broke up because I knew I wanted to. It just I was able to focus more. But I mean, with anything in life, dude, like we all make time to brush our teeth in the morning and at night. I don't know anyone who actually enjoys brushing their teeth. Like I've never met anyone who actually enjoys the experience of taking the brush and rubbing it against their teeth. Like I've never met anyone who says, I enjoy that experience. I've never met anyone. But yet we make time for this unenjoyable experience because we know in the end it is good for us. Um, and that's what a relationship is. It's
Wow,
like
the shade. Okay, so
it's
now,
like it's like it's like
ladies,
brushing your teeth.
are you single right now, Harrison? So we could put you out there.
Yeah,
Ladies, he's graduating and he's single. He's
okay.
educated. He dances
Uh,
salsa. He
nah,
produces his own music on Woke
man.
Wednesdays.
But yeah, no,
Ladies, come love up on
that's
Harrison. He
what that
needs
is.
some love.
I man, yeah, I
But I feel you because when I was doing my master's, that's one thing I can't do. And this is me personally. I can't do school in a relationship. Maybe it'll
it's
change
tough.
in the future, but for me, it's very. I will say personally, it's challenging for me. So I understand.
It's very tough. I couldn't do it either. I don't understand how there's people who have children and like are in school or or are taking care of a parent and in school.
I applaud them.
They are superheroes.
Yeah,
They are superheroes because I could never do it. So yeah.
we applaud them. So where can we find you?
Yo man, come through Woke Wednesdays at Woke Wednesdays, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all that stuff. We're producing a lot of dope content. Uh, I can't wait for to see what this is evolving into. Um, and I'm sure that with your podcast too, I'm sure when you first started, you didn't have that fancy microphone that you have now.
No, actually, this was a
Um,
gift.
but you see how things just evolve and they start kind of taking shape. You don't really know where it's gonna lead you, but you do this because you love it and because you believe that our communities need it, and they sure do need it. So that's why I do Woke Wednesdays. So feel free to follow, support the page, hang out, drop some comments on the videos that we do, and stay woke.
Will do. And this is the part where, like, if you have any links or helpful resources that you might want to shout out. I know you did mention a lot of books out there and you just provided so much advice. I feel like
Oh
it's a resource
yeah.
in itself, but anything extra that you may want to add or anything.
Well, actually, like I make also videos of books that I recommend. So I've made a couple of those. Those are also on Woke Wednesdays. I think reading is one of the most important things you could ever do. I think books are weapons. Um, so I encourage everybody to read. Read anything, whatever you can get your hands on, whatever interests you. And if you don't like books, then that's okay. Like read tweets, read something, challenge yourself. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And just be compassionate. I'll end with that. Have some compassion for people. And
Compassion, emotional
compassion is
intelligence. Look at all these gems we're just dropping for free.
compassion. I'm telling you,
just,
man.
just
Free.
dropping
It's for free.
for
Yep.
free. So, thank you so much. I can't say it enough. And so that wraps it up.
Thank you.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and visit our fellow brother at Woke Wednesdays. And thank you guys for tuning into Mahogany Honey Podcast.